Hi guys, thank you all for tuning in and welcome back to Sewing Clara. In today's video we are going to thread my sewing machine together and I will also show you how to wind a bobbin. So let's jump right into this. My sewing machine has the threading mechanism or like the threading system here underneath this lid. If you have a different sewing machine, it might look a little bit different. There are sewing machines that have the pin onto which you have to put the spool with the thread placed so that it's vertical. This one is in a horizontal position, and some machines don't have a lid, but in general it's the same principle, so you will definitely benefit from this video. So when you buy a sewing machine, you will have to look at all these arrows. There's always a graphic of how to pull the thread through in order for the machine to work, because that creates a certain tension of the thread, and that's being exactly calculated, and it's really important that the thread goes through the right places, otherwise the stitches wouldn't be right. Now I'm gonna show you how to start threading the machine from the top, and then I will move the camera to a different angle so that you can see it from the front, so that you basically have the same view, or pretty much the same view that I have when I'm working with the machine, because I find that especially at the beginning it's good to have seen it from different angles. So let's say you have a machine that has a pin for your spool that's placed vertically, so it would be upright. Those machines usually have a little felt circle that you have to place on the pin beneath the spool of your thread, because otherwise the spool wouldn't move correctly. That is not necessarily on machines like this where the pin is placed horizontally. So I'm gonna place the spool on the pin, but before that I'm gonna show you how it's wound, or like how I'm gonna place it. So I will make sure that the thread is wound counterclockwise, or basically the way I'm holding the thread, that it moves counterclockwise. So now I'm gonna put it on the pin and I will secure it with this little plate, and I will not push the plate too hard on the thread so that it can move nicely. So it should be a little bit loose. And then I have here all these arrows. So I have a line that's not interrupted, that's for the main threading, and then I have a line that's interrupted, and that's for the bobbin, which is something we're gonna do later together. So right now I want to thread the machine, so I have to follow all these lines that are not interrupted. And here we have number 1. There's a little beaky thing. It's a piece of metal under which I have to hook the thread. There we have number 2, and the arrow goes further here. Then it goes down and then up again and down again, and then there's the bottom part that you can't obviously see here from the top. So I always pull out a little bit of the thread and start carefully pulling the thread through all these places. And I take my time because I want to make sure that I do it right and that nothing gets caught anywhere. And then I basically pull it down. So now let me grab the camera and put it at a different angle, and we'll do it again. Let's do this again. So here we have number 1. We have here this arrow that looks like a U, which means we have to pull the thread beneath this metal part and go up, and then the arrow goes to the left and then down again. And then here we are going to hook it under this place and go up again and down again. So that's the top part. Now I'm gonna move the camera lower again because it's easier to see the bottom part. So here you can see the thread that comes from above, and here we have above the needle this little metal piece into which I have to hook the thread in. So if you have a simpler sewing machine, you would have to grab the thread then and thread it into your needle yourself, like so. And then you would pull it underneath the sewing foot towards the back. So that's one option. Now this machine has a really nice function. It has an automatic threading mechanism for the needle, which usually doesn't work when I'm filming, so we'll see if it's gonna work now. And that means I only have to grab the thread once I pulled it through this little metal piece and pull it through these two places, and then I lower the lever and the machine threads the needle for me. For me personally, this is a great help because my eyes aged a lot in the last few years. And whenever I have my glasses on or my lenses, anything that's up close is really hard to see. I have to get reading glasses soon. So that's a great help, but you can of course work without it. I hope that you can see this really well in detail. I'm gonna do it again. I have here the thread from the top. I'm gonna hook it behind this little metal piece. Sometimes it just jumps out. That can be very frustrating. So you have to kind of move the thread more to the left side and make sure when you thread the needle that the thread is basically going parallelly downwards with the needle and then through the eye of the needle towards the back so that it doesn't get tangled around the needle. That's really important. So I'm gonna thread it with the mechanism, and of course it didn't work. And now I did it. Yeah, that's basically how you thread your machine. Now that we successfully threaded the sewing machine, I can show you how to wind a bobbin. But first, let me explain what a bobbin is, where it goes into, and I will also tell you a few important things about bobbins in general. So this is a bobbin. So it's a little spool for the bottom thread for the sewing machine. Bobbins can be made either of plastic, just like this one. That's usually the case for most of the modern home sewing machines, or they can be made of metal, which is usually more the case for industrial sewing machines. Now, the manual for my sewing machine specifically says I'm not supposed to use metal bobbins in my machine because they could cause some damage, and I had to learn it the hard way. I broke the rules a couple of times. The bobbins caused some damage, the stitches weren't right, I had to have my machine fixed, and 188 euros later, I understood there is a reason why the manual says that. So save yourself some money, and if the manual for your sewing machine specifically says plastic bobbins only, don't tempt it, learn from my mistake. And also make sure that if you're getting some extra bobbins for your sewing machine, that they are the correct size, because some are a little bit smaller. So this is the larger size, and whenever I need to buy some extra bobbins, I always take one with me to make sure that I get the correct size. Now, since smaller size is also made of plastic, it would probably not cause any damage inside of my machine, but it would definitely mess up with the stitches. So the size definitely matters when it comes to bobbins. Here is the placement for bobbins on my sewing machine. So the bobbins go in from the top, which is very practical during sewing because you don't have to open anything, you don't have to slide out this little table. You simply push the button to the side, the lid will pop, then you can retrieve the bobbin, then you can wind it again, and then you can replace it. So here's a little graphic. It says that the thread is supposed to be wound counterclockwise when you're placing the bobbin in, and then there's a little part behind which I have to pull the thread. I will move it towards the back, and then I can close this lid, push it in, and that's it. I'm good to go. There are sewing machines that have a different placement for bobbins, so that's usually between this arm and the storage table. So I would have to slide the table out every single time I would want to do something with the bobbin, and then it usually has a lid that you can open, and there's a mechanism into which you have to place the bobbin, and the bobbin goes also into a small metal case. I like the system better, to be honest, because it was easier to clean the sewing machine from the side, especially when a needle broke or something like that. It was so much easier to find it than here, because here I have to unscrew everything and take the lid off. But then again, usually when nothing happens like that, it's easier when the bobbin sits on the top, because between sewing, you don't have to slide the table out. You have seen how quickly that goes. So there are downsides and upsides to both placements. It's all about personal preference. That's all the info you need to know about bobbins. So I'm gonna grab this bobbin and I'm gonna put it here onto this pin and push it down. The next step is to grab the thread, and I will pull it out from the main system. And now I will follow these interrupted lines. So it goes basically here, like when I started threading the machine, but instead of going to the left, I have to go to the right, and then I have to hook the thread here behind this beak and in front of this little wheel. And then I will wind the thread a couple of times around the bobbin clockwise, and then I will push this pin towards this metal part. And all I have to do now is to step on the pedal, and the bobbin will start being winded. This sewing machine has 3 speeds, so you will notice this is very slow. If I would speed it up, it would go faster. I personally like to keep it in the middle because I find that I have a much better result. It should make a difference, but it feels like it does, so that's what I'm doing. And one thing I like to do is to hold this thread to make sure that nothing gets tangled. Again, probably not necessary, but it just feels like it's helping. And that is how you wind a bobbin. I now cut the thread, so I have to pull the bobbin with the pin towards the left again. Because whenever I would step on the pedal, as long as the pin is being moved into the right position, the machine would want to wind a bobbin instead of sewing. Now that the pin is on the left side again, the machine will be sewing whenever I step on the pedal. And I can pull the bobbin down, and now all I have to do is to put it in the correct place, and I can start sewing. Let's go over the threading for the bobbin again. So again, first you place the main spool on the pin, and then you follow the interrupted line. So I go here where number 1 is, follow the U-formed interrupted line upwards, and then go to the right. And here there's a little graphic here on the top that shows what to do. So I have to go here behind and then in front of the wheel. And then if I had a bobbin here, I would wind it a couple of times, and then I would push the pin here to the right, and then I could start winding the bobbin. And last but not least, let's have a look at the diagrams that show how to thread the machine while I'm holding the camera freehand, because it's just so much nicer to see. So here you can see the main pin, and here are the lines that I talked about, the interrupted and the full line. So here is the main path. It goes here under this metal part and then upwards to the left. Then we move to the bottom. There we have another arrow that points upwards and another arrow that goes downwards. And here we have the little metal beaky part into which I have to pull the thread through, and this machine has this threading mechanism, and there's even graphic for that, where to pull the thread through, and that's the lever. And now let's go up again. So again, the main pin. Here we have the interrupted line and this little wheel with the beak in the back. The graphic for that is here, and that's the pin for the bobbin that you can move either to the left or to the right when you want to wind the bobbin. So that is how you thread a sewing machine and how you wind a bobbin. I hope that this video has been helpful. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, happy sewing!